Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. In this video, we will learn how to form cause and effect sentences and how to write a cause and effect explanation text. The learning objectives are: first, students are able to identify and form correct cause and effect sentences based on the video. The second, students are able to write a simple cause and effects explanation text using appropriate structure and language features. The expected competencies are: the first, students demonstrate understanding of cause and effect relationships presented in the video. The second, students are able to use appropriate signal words in forming cause and effect sentences. And the third, students are able to produce a simple explanation text with clear structure. Now, let's start our lesson. Let's discuss this sentence. Many students feel tired in class because they sleep very late at night. As a result, they find it difficult to concentrate during the lesson. Have you ever experienced this situation? It seems that all students have experienced it. In the example, we can see that the sentences show a relationship between a cause and an effect. Can you guess which one is the cause and which one is the effect? Cause means the reason why something happens, and effect means the result of a particular influence. This relationship is usually indicated by certain words called signal words, such as because, since, therefore, and as a result. Signal means movement or sound that you make to give somebody information, instructions, etc. Signal words are words or expressions that help readers or listeners identify the relationship between ideas, especially the relationship between cause and effect. Signal words serve as indicators that a sentence expresses a cause or effect. Before I explain about signal words, I will explain a little bit about clause. A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. A clause may or may not express a complete idea. A sentence is a group of words that contains at least one clause, expresses a complete idea, and can stand alone. A clause contains a subject and a verb, but it may be incomplete. A sentence contains at least one clause and expresses a complete idea. There are two types of clause. The first, independent clause. Independent clause can stand alone as a complete sentence. For example, she is sick. The second, dependent clause. Dependent clause cannot stand alone and is incomplete. For example, because she is sick. Because she is sick. If an independent clause stands alone without a dependent clause, it is a sentence. Now let's move to the signal words. There are two types of signal words in cause and effect. The first, signal words for cause. Because. The structure is in the middle position. Independent clause, because, dependent clause, period. In the beginning position, because, dependent clause, comma, independent clause, period. For example, she stayed home because she was sick. Because she was sick, she stayed home. Because of. In the middle position, independent clause, because of, noun phrase, period. In the beginning position, because of, noun phrase, comma, independent clause, period. For example, the game was cancelled because of the rain. Because of the rain, the game was cancelled. As. In the middle position, independent clause, as, dependent clause, period. In the beginning position, as, dependent clause, comma, independent clause, period. For example, we stayed home as it was raining. As it was raining, we stayed at home. Since. In the middle position, independent clause, since, dependent clause, period. In the beginning position, since, dependent clause, comma, independent clause, period. For example, he didn't go to school since he was sick. Since he was sick, he didn't go to school. 4. In the middle position, independent clause, for, independent clause, period. For as a conjunction meaning because is usually used in the middle of a sentence, not at the beginning. For example, she went to bed early, for she was very tired. Due to The structure is in the middle position, dependent clause due to noun phrase. In the beginning position, due to noun phrase, independent clause, period. For example, the flight was delayed due to bad weather. Due to bad weather, the flight was delayed. Owing to. In the middle position, independent clause, owing to, noun phrase, period. In the beginning position, owing to, noun phrase, comma, independent clause, period. For example, the road was closed owing to an accident. Owing to an accident, the road was closed. The second, signal words for effect. First, so. In the middle position, independent clause, so, independent clause, period. So is rarely or never used at the beginning of a formal sentence. For example, it was raining, so we stayed at home. She studied hard, so she passed the exam. The second, therefore. In the middle position, independent clause, semicolon, therefore, comma, independent clause, period. In the beginning, therefore, comma, independent clause. For example, he was sick, therefore he didn't go to school. Therefore, he didn't go to school. Thus, in the middle position, independent clause, semicolon, thus, comma, independent clause. In the beginning, thus, comma, independent clause, period. For example, she didn't study, thus she failed the test. Thus, she failed the test. As a result, in the middle position, independent clause, semicolon, as a result, comma, independent clause, period. In the beginning, as a result, comma, independent clause. For example, it rained heavily, as a result, the game was cancelled. As a result, the game was cancelled. Consequently, in the middle position, independent clause, semicolon, consequently, comma, independent clause, period. In the beginning position, consequently, comma, independent clause. For example, she forgot to set the alarm. Consequently, she woke up late. Consequently, she woke up late. Why is there no dependent clause in effect? Because effect signal words do not create dependent clauses. Cause signal words because, since, as function as subordinators or conjunctions that make a clause dependent. For example, because she was sick, it is incomplete and cannot stand alone. And then for affect signal words like so, therefore, thus, etc. function as connectors or conjunctive adverbs. They connect two independent clauses, not make a clause dependent. For example, she was sick, therefore she stayed home. When we use cause and effect signal words, we need to pay attention to what comes after them. Some signal words are followed by a clause and some are followed by a noun phrase. Let's move to the explanation text. This is the example of explanation text entitled Climate Change. You can read by yourself. Explanation text is a type of text that explains how or why a phenomenon happens. There are two types of phenomenon: natural phenomena and social phenomena. Natural phenomena are events that occur naturally in the environment without direct human control. Examples of natural phenomena: the formation of rain, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, the water cycle, the formation of rainbows, tsunamis, the formation of clouds. And then for social phenomena are events that occur in society and are influenced by human behavior, social systems, or cultural activities. Examples of social phenomena: urbanization, traffic congestion, inflation, population growth, social media, unemployment, climate change caused by human activities. The main purpose of an explanation text is to explain the process, causes, or reasons behind a phenomenon in a logical and systematic way so that readers can understand how or why something happens. Explanation texts can be divided into two types. The first is sequential explanation, which explains a process step by step. The second is cause and effect explanation, which explains why something happens and what the result is. The first, sequential explanation text. Sequential explanation explains a process or events in order, step by step. Common signal words are first, then, next, after that, finally. For example, the title is How Rain Happens. First, the sun hits the water in the rivers, lakes, and seas. Then the water evaporates and becomes water vapor. Then the vapor forms clouds in the sky. Finally, the clouds release rain. Second, cause and effect explanation text. Cause and effect explanation explains why something happens and what results from it. Common signal words are because, since, therefore, as a result, consequently. For example, the title is Why Flood Happens. Heavy rain falls for many hours. Because the river cannot hold all the water, it overflows. As a result, the surrounding area becomes flooded. Is the example above climate change a sequential explanation text or a cause and effect explanation text? Next, we move to the language features. To explain this relationship clearly, the text usually uses certain language features. Can you identify it? The first one is simple present tense. Simple present tense is used to talk about facts, general truth, habits, and routines. For example, climate change affects global temperatures. The second, cause signal words, used to show the cause of a phenomenon. For example, because, since, due to, because of. Example sentence: global warming occurs because of greenhouse gas emissions. The third, effect signal words, used to show the effect or result of a cause. Example sentence: the temperature increases, as a result, glaciers begins to melt. The fourth is technical terms. Technical terms are special words that are used in a particular field or subject. For example, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, deforestation, ecosystem. Next, generic structure. In addition, this type of text also follows a specific structure. It usually begins with a general statement that introduces the phenomenon, followed by an explanation of the causes and effects, and sometimes ends with a conclusion that summarizes the explanation. Generic structure. The first generic structure is general statement. This part introduces the phenomenon that will be explained. The second, explanation. This section explains the causes and the effect of a phenomenon. The This section can consist of a cause and an effect, or multiple causes followed by one effect, or one causes followed by multiple effects. The third structure is conclusion or closing. This section summarizes the explanation and emphasizes the importance of the phenomenon. The purpose of cause and effect explanation text is to explain why something happens and what results from it. So, what is the definition of cause and effect explanation text? A text that explains why a phenomenon happens and what effects it causes is called a cause and effect explanation text. That's all for today's lesson about cause and effect. I hope you understand it well. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to practice. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.